Hello and welcome to today's episode of Rainer on Leadership, your online home for leadership lessons and advice for the local church. I'm your host, Sam Rainer, and I have with me the founder and CEO of Church Answers. His name is Thom Rainer, and Dad, Merry Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho.
I had a feeling you were going to do that.
Ho,
and
ho,
for
ho.
those who are listening, when it airs, it is October. We know that. And there are a handful of you who have already... I can't even finish my thought now. There are a handful of you who have started listening to Christmas music, and you pagans, you heathens. You should not be listening to Christmas music until after Thanksgiving, or maybe during the Thanksgiving holiday. We've started this thing. The marketers and the capitalistic machine has kicked in, and everybody's, bringing in the dough for Christmas long before they should.
Brought to you by your favorite socialist, Thom Rainer.
Well, and I am a well-known free market capitalist, so I'm actually kind of joking at myself a little bit here. But that being said, you should be thinking about Christmas if you
in your church, for sure.
In your church, yes. So turn down the Christmas carols, Christmas music, and turn up this podcast because...
turn the radio on. Get in touch with God. Turn the radio on.
So the Christmas season is a time when...
That's not a Christmas song. That's right.
Yeah, it's the time when guests are more likely to visit your church. We're going to be talking about that. But before we do, let me thank our sponsor, Vanderbloemen.
William.
I wonder, I bet he decorates his house really nicely. I would imagine I'm totally speculating here. I have no idea what his views are, but I imagine that he really gets into it. We'd have to ask him. We need to ask him.
Oh, we need to have him back on the podcast and just
we should
say, William, we want to talk to you about Christmas. We don't want to
talk about... How do you decorate your house for Christmas? You look at us like, what are you guys talking about?
Exactly.
Well, you do need to check out Vanderbloemen, regardless of how he decorates his tree. If you are a church, school, nonprofit, values-based business, or family office, Vanderbloemen would be honored to serve you. Their team's goal is to empower yours by aligning your people's solutions for growth. So they do hiring, compensation, succession, and culture. Hire the right people, pay them well, plan for the future, build a culture that lasts. You can learn more at vanderbloemen.com. It's
early October when this is released. We don't know specifically when you might view it on YouTube or when you might listen to it on your podcasting app, but it is being released in early October, and it's not too early to start planning for Christmas. And the first point that you raised in this, Sam, is Christmas Eve services will be as popular as ever. Guests will be there. There are two things that we know. Number one, the time where most of the more unchurched will show up than any other time is Christmas Eve, not Easter. And then number two, this post-pandemic, we hope, this post-quarantine, we hope time will be a time when people want to get out more than ever for the Christmas season.
Yeah, I think so. I think that you're going to see, there were many churches last Christmas, who really debated about the right thing to do around Christmas Eve services. And I think that those were good discussions that were had. That being said, we're going to be at a point where I believe that a lot of people are more so than not going to want to come back to a Christmas Eve service. And I think churches that don't do a Christmas Eve service are really missing out on an opportunity. I do think they're going to be as popular as ever. I do think that you're going to see a lot of guests. Dad, I know in my own church, we've done upwards of 3 Christmas Eve services, depending on how the calendar shakes out at times. And every year that we've done it, whether we have 2 or 3 services, we have seen that we have about 50% of our attendance as guests. It's our largest single service of the year, of any service. It's even bigger than Easter now.
Yes.
And half of the people that attend are guests. It blows my mind. I mean, it just absolutely, I look out when I'm preaching at a Christmas Eve service, and I don't know these people. Now, some of them are from out of town, they're family members, whatever, but the fact remains that half of the people that attend, at least at our church, and I'm assuming for the listeners, your church as well, it's a significant percentage, they're going to be a boatload of guests there. Why would you not do this? Why not?
So, I knew a pastor one time. Well, I've known pastors lots of times, actually. But this particular pastor would not have Christmas Eve services. And the
That's
reason
such a
that,
curmudgeon. I don't even know who it is.
well, it's not curmudgeon, it's work ethic.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, if you're a lazy bum, you're a lazy bum.
He wanted Christmas Eve where he just had a Christmas Eve with his family. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I appreciate family first. We talk about that a lot here. But this is an opportunity to reach the most people. And he wouldn't have a Christmas Eve service because he wanted to be with his family.
Yeah, I make it really clear with the staff and anyone that we hire at West Bradenton that Christmas Eve services are kind of an all-in service, and it's part of the calling. And understand that I understand the sentiment. And some people have traditions. I know in my wife's family there are some strong traditions there,
Oh, yeah.
and
You better get
and
to Mount Washington in Christmas time.
yeah, we make it work. But they had to change. They had to move some things around because the Christmas Eve services are just that important. She has made some great sacrifices, and I'm very grateful to my wife for doing that. But that being said, for most churches, if a Christmas Eve service is a deal breaker for you, like you just can't do it, then you might want to consider your calling, because this is a critical time for the church. And just to bail for the sake of bailing, I think is wrong. Now,
Yep.
I understand there may be some extenuating circumstances and some people that have some unique cases and some churches that have some unique cases. And a lot of times the calendar kind of dictates how you do a Christmas Eve service. Particularly if you, with the way that it falls this year.
Friday this year,
Yeah.
2021, it's a Friday.
So this is even more of an opportunity. I think the Christmas Eve, Christmas Day services are hardest when Christmas Eve is a Saturday and Christmas Day is a Sunday. That makes it very hard, but it is ideal this
Well,
year.
Sam, I just want to tell you something. If Christmas Eve is a Saturday, you're not going to have any choice about when Christmas is.
No, you're right.
It's going to be on Sunday.
It's going to be on Sunday, and I
I just
still
want
think
to bring clarity to your mind there.
no. And I still think that even in that case, you need to have a Christmas Eve service
Absolutely.
and a Sunday morning experience. But that's not for this year. This year, Christmas Eve falls on a Friday, and it is ideal timing. I mean, you can have a separate Christmas Eve service and then invite people to your Sunday services, because Christmas Day is Saturday. It's perfect. You may look at this and say, "Oh, my weekend's ruined." No, it's a great ministry opportunity. I love the way Christmas falls this year. It's the perfect way for it to happen, where Christmas Eve is a Friday, and then Christmas Day is a Saturday, and then you get to come back to church on Sunday.
So this year, people will probably, with all the liquidity injected into the market, they'll probably spend a lot on gifts. This is not the time to be shy. We talk about our partners at Church Growth Services and the relationship we have with them, and their promotion of generosity in churches. This is not the time to be shy about encouraging your members to the discipline of generosity. It is a spiritual discipline, like prayer, like sharing the gospel, like reading the Bible. We don't need to shy away, and particularly this time of year.
I think Christmas is a good time to emphasize giving. And I think a lot of pastors miss out, because people tend to be thinking about giving. They're buying gifts. People are going to spend a ton of money on gifts this year because of the excess liquidity that's out there. And if you don't know what that means, excess liquidity, it just means that there was a lot of stimulus, and whatever you think about that, people got it. So it's there. People are spending it. You shouldn't be afraid to ask people to be generous with gifts to the church. You don't have to single anyone out. You don't have to point fingers. You can just say, "Hey, many of you have been blessed, and let's talk about what giving to God looks like." Now, that may be an awkward, like, Christmas Eve sermon, but we've actually taken up
Leading up
to it. And we've actually, on Christmas Eve, we have taken offerings for people in need. So somebody needed a vehicle, a single mom needed a vehicle. We took up an offering to buy her a vehicle. We needed missionaries that had some funds they needed to raise in order to be sent to a difficult part of the world. We've taken up an offering for them. So we've used the Christmas Eve service as giving opportunities. We've just made it about, something other than the church. It was about, a very specific thing that we wanted people to give to.
Question about your church before you continue. Are you in one of the minority churches that's passing the plate?
Yeah. You're talking about right now?
Right now.
Yeah, we stopped passing the plate for a season, but quickly brought it back. We found that we jumped in online giving from like about 15% to like 50%, and we've made
That's a great
changes.
move.
Oh yeah, it's so much better. But we still have a time where there is a prayer for the offering, a time and a focus on generosity. Our deacons are the ones that take up the offering, so they still walk the aisle with the plate. We're not passing the plate, but they walk the aisle with the plate just to let people know this is the time to focus on giving. And since we introduced text to give, we actually have people, because we'll put the instructions on the screen while all that's happening. We'll have people that text to give during that time. And by the way, all of our text to give people that we've added since we've started doing this are new giving units.
That is so true.
So a focus on generosity this year, even by adding a new method of giving like text to give, is a really good idea. Every time we've added an option to giving, and when I got to West Bradenton, we did not even have online giving.
I know. And when you got it, it was terrible.
Well, now
I had to send a check for a while. I thought, what is this? A piece of paper that you write numbers on?
Well, thank you for telling the audience about how I cannot manage my church. But that being said,
Hey, it's great now.
It works now. Yes,
it works now, and y'all are having no trouble receiving my funds.
Here's the point: every time we've emphasized it, again, in a gracious way, you don't have to be heavy-handed. It's a giving season. Why not focus on giving? And anytime we focused on giving, and anytime we've added options to giving, not taking away options, but adding new options, we've always added new giving units. It's a great time to think about adding new giving units. And those are business terms, and forgive me, I understand there's much more of a theological basis to giving. We're just talking on a podcast about some practical stuff. But people need to be giving to the church. They need to be giving to God through the church. It's probably a better way to say it. And what better time than now? I think it's a good time.
In our qualitative surveys, interviews, social media plus that we've done, the plates are the number one thing that's disappeared.
No, I know something that's disappeared even more than that.
What?
The greeting time.
You might be right there. I could stand corrected.
I know that. And you know who was way ahead of his time and received a lot of heat several years ago for talking about killing the shake your hand stand.
Mine had nothing to do with germs.
No, your blog far preceded the pandemic. Do you remember the heat that you took over telling everyone they needed to kill the shake your hand time?
Yeah, and there's hundreds of thousands of views, and boy, is there a debate that went on. I remember Tim Chalice and Amy. Are we having Tim on an interview, or will we have had him on an interview by this time? Anyway, Tim's
coming on. He's going to come on the show, and be looking for it if you haven't already seen it,
or if it doesn't precede where we are right now, one of the two. But Tim Chalice was talking about he was in his church or something, and they had a greeting time, and he felt guilty. He was looking over his shoulder to see if I was looking at him.
And many of our listeners may not even remember that, but boy, it was so hot when it came out. And actually, I disagreed with you. I like,
of course you would. You love to talk. You love to be with people. But if you have over half of the people say they don't like it, and not just members, but guests, that might be a clue that it's something that you don't need to do.
So we actually took it out of our service because of your data, not because of the way I feel, but because of your data. And we had, I don't think I've ever told you this. We had a business meeting at West Bradenton where it was discussed that we had removed the time of greeting. And there was a handful of people that wanted to bring it back. And finally, one person who explained herself as an introvert said, I am so glad that it's gone. And then she said everything that you've ever said, not knowing that you've said it. And there was a chorus of amens at that business meeting, and it pretty much shut down the discussion from then on out. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying this is what I feel. I like the greeting time, but you're right. Most people do not. But that has nothing to do with Christmas Eve services, other than perhaps don't do a greeting time.
Oh man, well, you're right. The stand and greet, or pass the peace, as some of the mainline liturgical churches call it, that's all but gone now. And I don't think it'll come back even when there will always be the lingering fear of some type of germ, some type of bad thing that could happen if you hug a lot.
It's funny you say pass the peace. If I went up to some of my church members and said, "Hey, let's pass the peace," they'd be like, "You're not getting my gun. That's not happening."
Well, if someone had said it to me, I'd say, "You're not getting my piece." I'd have a different view on it. Okay, so we got off trail a little bit, but we're talking about generosity, and yes, people are going to be more prone to be generous. It is a time to encourage the discipline of generosity. Here's something else: more activities, community activities that were canceled, will be back in full swing as well. That's back to a new normal.
Yes, there's more competition. And I hate to say it like that, because as Christians, we don't want to compete with each other. Um, churches should cooperate, not compete. I understand all that, but in reality, there's only so much time. There's only so many activities. There's only so many Christmas activities that people are going to do. And we need to be on our A game as the church. If you're getting back into full swing, these other activities are going to be back in full swing, and you holding off on another year is probably not a good idea, because you're going to lose pace. You're going to lose momentum with the community, because I do believe that the vast majority of community activities will be back, and people will, if you've had a Christmas Eve service, they're going to expect that your Christmas Eve service is back in full swing. So, the way I've tried to manage the pandemic, and hopefully at the point that this airs, we're well on our way past it, but I've tried to go with the flow of the community. I think that's a good way for the church to manage a lot of things. Is particularly activities, not necessarily doctrine or belief. In that way we go against the grain. But when you're talking about what activities should we be doing, you kind of want to go with the flow of the community. I believe in most communities the flow is going to be things are kind of back to where they were. So it's good for you to if you haven't, bring back the Christmas Eve service for that reason alone. And I think that people still expect a more traditional worship service at Christmas.
You're right, Sam. This is not the debate over style of worship. This is about Christmas Eve and some of the traditional Christmas hymns. Some of the do you remember how y'all made fun of me when I was interim pastor at your wife's church, your wife-to-be church?
Oh yeah,
you remember about the candlelight service?
You may now extinguish the flame.
Y'all were cruel to me. Y'all were just so cruel. You three boys, here I am trying to have a nice candlelight service, and my three sons are rolling in the pew.
Hey, no, if you should come to our Christmas Eve service at West Bradenton, and I will have you come up and you can tell everyone, you may now extinguish the flame.
I didn't say it that way, but y'all, of course, I didn't know why y'all were laughing so hard either. Zipper check, what's going on? I did not know what's going on. You boys were having so much fun at my expense on the second row. And of course, you were sitting with your mother, and now that you were older, were y'all all adults then?
Right on the cusp, I guess.
Jess would have been a senior in high school, I think, because he was the age of your wife to be at the time.
It worked out. It worked out. I married a good one.
So y'all were older, and if something happened, once y'all got through most of the tough years of adolescence, you three boys went to being infallible in your mom's eyes. And you've never done anything wrong since then. And that was kind of the early stages of it. It didn't mind that y'all were cutting up, that you were making me wonder what I had done wrong or what I looked like. And she just looks over there and smiles at you. That's nice. Those are my three sons. My husband makes a lot of mistakes, but not my sons.
So the lesson in all of this is you need to have a candlelight service.
There you go.
You need to go traditional. You need to, this isn't about the worship wars. This is just about expectations and what's actually resonating in the culture and in the community. Even non-churchgoers, if they come as a guest, are going to expect something that's a little more traditional in nature. And if you get all avant-garde on everybody with your Christmas Eve service, people are probably going to walk away saying, what on earth was that? There are times to be creative. There are times to be at the cutting edge. There are times to push the envelope. Christmas Eve is not that time. People want a 45-minute service. Make sure you share the gospel. Keep it very traditional. I myself like candles. I think you should do candles. And you're going to have a lot of wins built into that. And you know what? You may not like what I'm saying, but it's the truth. Try it. Go all avant-garde and weird in your Christmas Eve service. See how it goes. Just and then
So
you can get back.
don't have a off-key solo trombone during the service.
Well, I don't ever don't ever recommend that. Is this a story from one of your churches?
We'll talk about it later. We just want to remind you how important Christmas Eve is in the life of the church, how important Christmas Eve is in the life of the unchurched. And Sam and I provided these tips to just give you some ideas of how to move forward. It's early October when we're releasing this, so you got some time and you can have a really incredible Christmas. We want to thank Southeastern Seminary. They're committed to help you training whatever you need to do to pursue your ministry from anywhere in the world. And hey, if you apply to them for any of their programs, and for you Church Answers listeners, if you use the code Church Answers, that's one word, no space, they will waive the application fee. No matter what stage of life's journey you find yourself in, we want to help you take your next step in getting equipped to disciple and teach others. And coming to Southeastern, you'll find that seminary isn't just about theological education. It's about ministry preparation. Explore the degrees, schedule a visit, or apply today at sebts.edu. Thank you for joining us today on this Christmas Eve exploratory session of Rainer on Leadership. Watch us on YouTube. Be careful when you watch us. Be careful out there. Or subscribe on iTunes and listen to us audibly at Google Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app. Join us together at churchanswers.com, where we are growing healthy churches together.